How many in this audience are out of work? What happened? Nice, hard-working person like you, on time every day? You don't drink? You don't do drugs?
Well, in many cases, what happened, it was due to reorganization. I was working for the federal government in primary health care with community health centers, and there was a cutback. I worked with the state around HIV issues and substance abuse. There was a cutback. I worked in a community organization that was concerned with health care, and there was a reorganization. So right now for myself, it's a point, what can I do and what skills do I have that I could possibly help myself?
You're out of work now?
Yes, I am.
Mm-hmm. What do you do all day?
Resumes, reading, classes.
Do you call like agencies and people like that?
Well, what I try to do is I network a great deal. I do a great deal around studying. I just finished a course in workshops in small business opportunities.
Is that going to help?
I think so.
Uh-huh. So you don't look depressed to me.
No, I'm not going to be. I should be, but I'm not going to be.
Who else wants? Yeah? How long have you been out of work?
About 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, what happened? They call you in, or did they...
Well, what happened, we were all sitting down in a food court area, and we
in
all
the
got
what court?
Food court, like in a mall.
Food court. You
Yeah.
work in a mall. What did you do at the mall?
We did the maintenance work over there and stuff. And,
like leaky roofs, neon signs that don't work, stuff like
clean
that?
the insides of malls,
Oh, I see.
outside,
All
the
right.
landscaping.
This is on Long Island, isn't it?
Right,
You mind telling us which one? You don't have to.
Smith Haven.
What is it?
Smith Haven Mall.
Smith Haven Mall. That's a big mall, is it?
Yeah, it's a pretty big mall.
Okay, how many on the maintenance crew?
About 40, I would say.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, what happened 3 weeks ago?
3 weeks ago, we were sitting down all...
in the food court?
Yeah, relaxing, and we saw these people coming in. It looked like unskilled labor coming in the doors, cheap labor, and we all were sitting there, and we went to this side room in the mall, and we sat there, and we all talked, and our old company came in and gave us our severance pay, back pay, and all that. Meanwhile, a few of our guys were sitting outside, looking outside the mall, and there were guys in there working, doing our jobs, and the day wasn't even finished.
And they didn't tell you that they were going to do this?
No.
And how many people lost their job with you that day?
Oh, I'd say around 30. They kept maybe, I would say, an estimate, 7 or 8 people.
When you say unskilled labor, what do you mean? Are these foreign nationals that took your job?
Yes, I would say so.
Look like Americans, then you're saying?
Right.
What did they look like?
Well, I guess you'd say they look Spanish and...
Hispanic?
Hispanics, yes.
Did you get a severance pay?
Yeah, we got like 2 weeks back pay, severance pay. We got 2 weeks, and we got all of vacation that was owed us.
Right.
Or
Did a guy get up and announce this to you, or did they call you in individually?
They brought us in a room, in a side room in the mall, which was not being used at the time.
This is from nowhere, like a sucker punch then.
Well, pretty much so.
You didn't see this coming?
The management just told us we have to meet somewhere, and that, our jobs were in trouble.
Was there no opportunity for you to keep your job at a lower price?
I went down, in fact, 2 days afterwards and tried to get my job back, and I met this Hispanic guy, and I asked for my job back, and they did hire 2 guys back from the mall that I worked with and happened to be Hispanic, and they told me there were no job openings for me.
Did you have health insurance when you worked at the mall?
Yes, I did.
Have you any coverage now?
No, but through the union we arranged to keep it for as long as they're going through a court settlement or something.
I see. So, but the life of your health insurance is uncertain. You don't know how long it's going to be.
Right, we don't know. We got to pay the union dues. Another thing I wanted to just bring up quickly is that our union is 32B and J, and right now, out in the city here, the apartment buildings and all that, they're all
New York City.
They're all on strike. They're all on strike. We're a union. We should all stick together and not branch off and stick with each other.
Thank you. I'll be back. Anybody else want in here? AT&T, 40,000 people, individual, children of God. Kaboom. How many in Jersey? 7,000. Are you one of them?
I could be.
What do you mean?
Well, right now I'm the president of CWA Local 1058, and we represent 4,000
Communication Workers of America. You represent 4,000
of the administrative clerical workers in New Jersey and corporate headquarters, and we're faced with the possibility of losing about 860 of our members by April 30th.
And there's nothing you can do about that.
Well, we're trying to work with the company and trying to find people jobs. We have a tremendous amount of contingency workers at AT&T, and we're trying to get rid of them so that we can get jobs for our members. But what our fear is that once we get rid of the contingency workers, those jobs will disappear completely, and they'll still be on
What's
the
a
street.
Contingency worker?
Agency temporary.
I see.
Contractor.
People who are hired to work for as long as the company wishes to or needs them.
Exactly.
And there are no benefits with contingency jobs, are there?
No.
No. Uh-huh. You're the head of a union?
Yes.
You must feel pretty lonely out here. I mean, your game is on its back.
Yep.
I mean, I listen to my speaker, Newt. Show me a union member, I'll show you somebody drinking coffee. Show me a union member, I'll show you somebody making outrageous demands for increases in salary and benefits. Show me a union member, I'll show you a guy who wants 3 people to screw in a light bulb. I am not telling you anything. You know that that's how the big guys in the air-conditioned offices feel about you.
Well, I probably think you're right there.
That they feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
How'd this happen? How'd this happen? We hate unions in this country. It's almost like a self-loathing. Well, we're going to the top to figure this out. Yes, he is the United States Secretary of Labor. He is Robert Reich, and he needs no lecture about what's happening in America. These stories do not surprise you.
They don't surprise me at all. In fact, what we're seeing around the country, Phil, right now is a breaking of what used to be a contract, an implicit contract between management and labor, companies and their workers. If the companies did well, workers could be assured they'd have job security, they'd have rising wages, they'd have benefits. These days, companies that are making record profits are laying off record numbers of employees. Who's going to buy the goods and services they produce if people don't have paychecks?
Now, let's understand this so even I can understand it. If you lay off workers and you downsize, your profits go up, your stock prices go up, Wall Street is thrilled, just set another record recently, and several thousand, untold thousands of people are laid off. So the middle class gets screwed while the white-collar guys and the investment people on Wall Street make even more money. This is really insidious.
But, Phil, it's not just blue-collar, it's also white-collar people.
That's true. That's very true in the AT&T case. We have management people here, do we not, from AT&T? It's funny, the blue-collar, they were afraid to talk. Listen, I'm telling you that, I want to tell you something. If I'm a manager and I'm with AT&T for 20 years, 25 years, whatever it is, and I got my little house with the patio and the Weber grill and 2.5 kids and a wife who loves me, and all of a sudden I get this arrow in the heart from my company and not expecting it, I'm not going on a talk show. Yeah, I don't want people pitying me. The problem with that is we aren't able then to put a face on the many levels of the classes, the numbers of classes that are involved in this downsizing. Mr. Secretary, sir.
Well, we call it downsizing and right-sizing and restructuring and re-engineering. Let's call it for what it is, firing.
Yeah. Firing. Jerry Meyer, you got yourself. Were you with McDonnell Douglas?
McDonnell Douglas first, and then a company called J.I. Case, which manufactures heavy equipment. I was downsized and outplaced and outsourced from both of them.
Yeah. Let's talk about McDonnell Douglas for a moment. Long time air manufacturer, served both the Pentagon and the civilian market. The DC-9, on which many of us have flown commercially, is a McDonnell Douglas product, is it not?
DC-10, DC-9.
The DC-10. St. Louis, Missouri.
Right, and California. A lot of people in California.
Right. You were a Vice President of Public Relations?
Right.
Vice President.
Right.
Oh. Jerry You had it nice, didn't you?
I had it very nice.
You
yes,
know,
I
you
did.
got paid and you paid your bills, and you had a little walking around money.
I did indeed.
How many kids?
3.
And St. Louis is a nice town.
Right.
Lots of things to do. Did you belong to a golf club by any chance?
No, I didn't.
But I bet you had your 2-week vacation every year.
Definitely.
Uh-huh.
I had
Did
a good deal, there's no question
Yeah,
about
did
it.
you see it coming?
In a vague, indirect way, yes.
When did this happen? 19 what?
88.
Well, what happened? Did the big guy come into your office or did he call you to his?
Well, I had a meeting with the big guy weekly, and he canceled it for about 3 or 4 weeks running. That's one reason I wondered what was going on.
When an actor begins to cough in the soap opera script, that's curtains too. But go ahead. He didn't meet you for 3 weeks. We're laughing, but it isn't funny. Go ahead.
Well, then when he did meet me, he told me that I was going to have to leave my job, that they decided that it was time for me to go. The strange thing is, this was at the beginning of this downsizing thing, and I was so dumbfounded and so shocked, not knowing what to do. I said, I refuse to do it. And you don't...
Refuse to do what?
Refuse to leave, believe it or not. I said, you have no grounds for this. You've never given me any warning, and I've never had anything but good performance evaluations. The strange thing is that they seem to be so thrown off balance by that they changed their minds. And instead of getting rid of me, they took away all my duties and put me in a glass office where I was very visible, and they just sort of humiliated me out of the place. But it was pretty bad and pretty ridiculous.
So you up and wrote a book, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Who's a geek?
Well, literally, a geek is somebody who makes money by biting the heads off
Of chickens.
chickens in carnivals. I use the word geek to describe the people who do this dirty work.
What's the dirty work?
Biting the heads off human beings and throwing them out.
Oh,
in
you mean the
street.
people who fire?
Right.
Yeah, but you've had your unpleasant experience with job placement people too, have you?
Yes.
Did you go to a job placement outsource?
Well, I was in an outplacement place, and I worked a lot with headhunters too. That's a new industry that's very interesting and sometimes disagreeable to work with.
You're thunderous in your criticism of them in your book.
Well,
I mean,
I tried to describe what I experienced.
if outplacement resembles anything, it's probably most like purgatory. You don't want to be there. You wouldn't be there if you'd been better or smarter or luckier. And the only point in being there is doing what you can to get out. In other words, get in and out. It's not a good place to be.
I'm sure even the outplacement people would agree that the goal is to get out of there.
Here, this is a very, very personal and candid review of a proud American's near-death professional experience. I'm ashamed in 2 ways. On a simple level, you wrote, I'm ashamed of myself for being out of work, for getting my family into such a fix, for allowing myself to become an executive in the first place, and then letting the whole thing go so wrong. I'm ashamed of myself for losing when I hear the guy next door start his car in the morning and drive away. I'm ashamed to still be in bed. I'm ashamed to rake leaves on weekday afternoons because everybody in the neighborhood will see, as if they already didn't know, that I don't have an office to go to anymore.
It's a very painful experience and humiliating and angering. And I found that when I was going through it, a lot of people were going through it, but nobody seemed to be writing about it, and that's why I decided to write Executive Blues.
I hope you make $1 million on this book. Down and out in corporate America. Boy, that's a blue dark cover there, Mr. Meyer, but we shouldn't be surprised. This has been a blue dark experience for you. We'll find out what you're doing and what happened to you. We've got a real live professor of economics here from NYU. What's going on here, downsizing? What happened to the secretary's reference to the old ethic of the town, the company, the responsibility of the company, and so on? Incidentally, is there anybody out there that believes the Sea Wolf isn't a jobs program? The Sea Wolf submarine? We don't need another submarine. We're making it because we really can't afford as a nation to have all those people in Connecticut out of work. And incidentally, if I worked at Electric Boat on the Sea Wolf submarine, I'd think this would be a mighty fine jobs program. Not to mention the B-2 bomber. You and I know the truth, don't we? The Pentagon doesn't want the bomber. The politicians can't afford to cancel it because of the anger that would ensue from the constituents who make the bomber. So the Pentagon is a jobs program. In many, many ways, has nothing to do with military strategy. Some of these unemployed folks in our audience might want to know, where's their jobs program? I bet you'd be happy to build a military airplane if they pay you for it. Cynthia Pollard, you're from Atlanta, Georgia. 2 years ago, you were selling computers. And today, she's a waitress. We'll talk with her and with you about America as it makes its way into the millennium. More than 7 million of us are officially unemployed. I wonder what the real number is. And we'll be back in just a moment. What happened, Cynthia Pollard of Atlanta, Georgia? 2 years ago, you were selling computers. You were a very, you were always bright and ambitious person. I think, without presuming too much vanity, you acknowledge that, don't you? You worked hard, you were ambitious, so on. You got into computers. You went from where to computers?
Well, I was an insurance rep for a company, covered the state, and when that job, they pulled out of the state of Georgia, the insurance company did, so when I looked for something more technical, something planning more of a career for myself, yes, long-term, I thought, went technical, went into a company, took a cut and pay to learn computers, be trained on all the different major manufacturers.
You saw that as the future.
Exactly, and
Smart
it wasn't.
person. Yeah, no, I mean, who's going to say
and
it
isn't? Wasn't. But I helped establish and build up a government division, won government contract selling computers.
You, for your company, sold the product, the computer product of your company, to the government. Do I understand that? Not a bad customer to call on, the United States government. Do you mind telling us the name of the computer company? It's up to you.
Bethco Incorporated.
Beth what?
Bethco.
Bethco. This is headquartered in Atlanta?
It is now, primarily. It's a woman-owned small business that they did use to get government contract, but then closed the government division after I got it up and going.
It was a good job.
It was.
It was a challenging job.
Very challenging.
I mean, you liked it. Those are high stakes you're calling on. I mean, this is not widgets you're selling. These are expensive products. And you did this for what? Over 3 years, is that right?
About 3 years.
What happened?
Well, I, as he was mentioning, suspected some things. So back in November of 91, excuse me, 92, I asked them what the future looked like for the government division, and they said everything looks great for next year, don't worry about a thing. January 6th, I got called into the office, and they decided to close the government division.
Close?
Close it. And they had also bought a company in Washington that strictly for government purposes, and they were without work also.
Was there a severance? I assume there was.
No.
No severance?
Well, I mean, they said you can file for unemployment. So.
You're a 3.5-year employee making $40,000 a year, and you had no severance.
Right, and they conveniently changed the vacation rules a few months before, so I didn't even get vacation pay into the next year. So.
I assume you had health insurance when you worked in the employ of this company.
Right, I did.
Right, and it wasn't portable.
Right.
I doubt. So you're not covered now?
I was not. No, I'm not covered now.
You're a married person?
No, I'm single. Thank goodness.
Yes.
I would hate to have children to support like this.
You're a single mother of how many children?
No, I'm not a child. I have no children. That's why I said I'm fortunate that I do not have children to.
You are fortunate. You probably know a lot of women contemporaries.
I do know a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have yourself to take care of now. How much depression followed this? None of our business, but...
A lot.
Really?
Well, immediately, within a month after the getting laid off, I was hit through no fault of my own and totaled my car, which, when you don't have insurance, I had to pay out for my medical expenses.
You totaled your car?
Well, someone else did.
Yeah.
But my car was totaled, back injuries, that kind of thing, no insurance.
Within a week or so?
Almost immediately. Yeah. I mean, I had pain immediately.
You got fired and you totaled your car in, at the same time.
Right.
Wow.
and didn't have money to pay for the medical bills at the time, so I had to take the money that was given to me from my car and pay for that, which means to this date I still don't have a car.
Yeah.
So
when somebody comes to your door and says garbage, you probably say, bring her right in. This is as bad as luck gets. But you didn't sit home long, so, I mean, I assume you've had your long moments there.
Oh, yeah.
And you're now a waitress. Is the uniform reasonably decent?
It is, yeah. I just recently changed locations, but I mean, the primary reason for me waiting tables is because I physically got ill going on interviews to work for another corporation. I couldn't do it.
The business of searching for a job got you.
It made me sick.
It made you sick. Why? They don't look at you? What?
I went in, I had believed the whole scenario of you're going to make, I took a $10,000 cut, well, actually about $15,000 cut in pay just to go to work for this company in the first place. And thinking I'm making a personal investment, you know, you make your sacrifices, you will be rewarded, and you're not. So.
But I'm not sure I understand what it is that made you sick about the attempt to get into the...
Because I couldn't trust.
What?
I couldn't trust anything that people were telling me. I mean, it's corporations had job offers, but how can you believe that they're really going to give you what they say they are when you just had it yanked out from under you before?
Mr. Meyer... Mr. Meyer tells us that of the significant numbers of times that people just flat didn't even call back. Nodding affirmatively is Barbara Collins, Senior Vice President Director of New York's Drake Beam Moran Outplacement Service. You're the villain about whom Mr. Meyer has been speaking. I assume you want him to know that you're not a geek. You look your clients in the eye.
Yes, I do.
You have empathy for their emotional circumstance, but you're not a psychologist.
No, no.
So you've been surrounded then in your own professional life by a lot of these folks. It must be depressing for you.
Actually, as I was looking to join the outplacement industry about 5 years ago, and I had been downsized from an insurance brokerage firm.
Yes.
And part of my package was outplacement. So I've been on both sides of the plate with this industry. And before I took the job, someone said, aren't you going to be depressed doing this all the time? And far from it. We find people to be extraordinarily resilient. I am amazed at what people do day after day after day to make this happen for themselves.
Yes. We shouldn't expect you to say anything that isn't positive about your own work. I wouldn't. I'm proud of what I do myself. I do think it's important to look beyond those people that you've so professionally aided to the untold numbers of folks who perhaps haven't hit. And we ask you in a moment to give us more detail on that. And we will also talk with Professor Edward Wolf, Professor of Economics at NYU, who will tell us, among other things, that corporate heads are realizing they no longer need the middle management layer. I don't misquote you, I assume.
No, not at all.
High-tech, everything. You remember the cash register used to go chugga-boom, chugga-boom, chugga-boom. Now it goes, and it's over. And in that solid-state technology, apparently, is the big hole that was once occupied by real live people.
Yep, that's true. The computer age has displaced a lot of functions that were formerly done by middle-level managers.
So are we too smart for our own good is the question. Has the human brain given us such advanced technology that we no longer need ourselves? I'll give you a chance to speak to that question and others when we return in just a moment.
Be a part of the studio audience. For free tickets, write to Donahue Tickets, 1 Penn Plaza, New York, New York, 10119. Or call toll-free 1-800-684-5950. That's 1-800-684-5950.
All right, class. What do you mean here, the real minimum wage? Secretary Reich, $6.48. We never had an official minimum wage of $6.48.
No, Phil, in current dollars, the minimum wage, if in current dollars, given inflation, used to be way up there at $6.48. It's now at $4.25 an hour. That means a full-time minimum wage earner, full-time, is earning $8,600 a year.
Yeah, let's understand this then. In 1967, the year our program began,
and there was
of
a director
interest to no one but me, but you know, you got to let me say.
That's why the minimum wage was so high, Phil.
In other words, that was a hot year then.
This is a great year.
In other words, in terms of buying power, the minimum wage was $6.50
It
in
was
that.
$6.50 in current dollars. And again, what we're seeing is the minimum wage is heading toward a 40-year low, if you adjust for inflation.
Yeah. If I could just take a moment to talk about my favorite subject, myself. In 1960, I made $9,000 a year. That year, $9,600. I'll show you the W-2 form. And I had an apartment, my own furniture, a car with payments, and 2 kids. And I still had movie money. In 1963, I was making $16,000 a year, and I bought a house with a see-through fireplace for $16,900. I was making $17,000 a year in 1964, 63 or 64, and I bought a $33,000 brand new house with 5 bedrooms, and the interest on my mortgage was 4 3/4%. And I owned a car, and I was 27 years old. You show me a 27-year-old today who can buy his or her own house. I mean, this is stunning. This is, Mr. Professor Wolf, this does not look good. May I ask for your, given what you've heard here, as a professor of economics at NYU, what would you want to share with this audience that will be, in terms of your own analysis of what's happening, what you see here, what's going on here?
Well, I think the news is fairly grim. I think we've seen that family incomes haven't grown very much over the last 25 years. We've seen wages actually fall in terms of purchasing power, and we've seen the rich get a lot richer over the last 10 or 15 years. You know, all the growth in our economy, all the increase of our national wealth is falling into the hands of the richest 20%. And you wonder who's benefiting from all this downsizing, from this falling minimum wage, from the fact that wages in general are going down, and it's the people at the top. They're getting richer, stock prices are going through the roof, corporate profits are going up. We're seeing a very maldistribution of income and wealth in this country. That's what we're seeing.
Well, you know, this sounds like a pre-revolutionary scenario here. You can't deprive this many honest, hard-working, sober Americans the opportunity to feed their kids without some kind of kaboom happening socially. Maybe it's already happening. Maybe we see it in the cities of this nation, not to mention the suburbs. You wanted to say?
I think the reason why it's not happening, it seems to me, is that the political leadership in the country is not responding. Nobody is really addressing this. It appears to me.
Yeah. Let me hold your thought. Hold 1 second. Continue your important thought as we continue to we remain a commercial television program against all the odds. We'll be back to let you in on this as well in just a moment.
I just couldn't bring myself to kill my own child, willing to take the risk.
They were told they might die in childbirth, but had babies anyway.
It's like we live on through them.
Willing to give their lives to give birth. Next, Donahue.
Jerry Meyer's book, Executive Blues, Down and Out in Corporate America, 20 years, McDonnell Douglas. And he took an arrow in the heart. He was told to leave. And he said, I'm not leaving. And I said, okay, stay. And they made him cook in a glass office until he finally left. You hate corporate America. You believe that good people are losing jobs because of malicious management. Mr. Meyer, you were saying when we broke for the commercial.
I was saying that, that there are enormous numbers of people out there, as there are in this room, who have been affected by this. And I think many of these people are looking for leadership. They're hurt with arrows in their heart. They want there to be some reaction to this. And neither party, in my honest opinion, is responding. Neither is offering anything.
What is it you would have them do?
Well, that's a good question. I think that an insufficient answer is to talk about job retraining. I talked about that too in Executive Blues. When I was out of work, how do I find, well, I'm willing to retrain myself for anything, but what could I retrain myself for? I could not find any opportunities of that kind. I voted enthusiastically for President Clinton, and I remember him saying, I feel your pain. That's no longer a sufficient response. I feel your pain. What to do about it is a big question, and I don't claim to be wise enough to say, but I wish there were politicians out there who were addressing this and attempting.
The first thing I felt the first time I was fired was surprise. Bone-rattling shock at finding myself for the first time since the week I graduated from grade school without a place in the world of work. My luck had been good for so many years that I'd learned to think of it not as luck, but as something I had earned, something I was owed. You really make the point that you surprised yourself, didn't you, when you were young?
I'm very typical of white American males, I think, of roughly my age, and that is that I came of age in this world of enormous opportunity, as you depicted, and a prosperity and success of a kind that I hadn't foreseen or expected, sort of fell into my lap. And we learn to take that for granted. Obviously, we shouldn't, but we do. And then when it's withdrawn, it's a very, very big shock to people and to families.
Between my junior and senior year in college, I worked in a steel mill. A very enlightening experience, may I say. And this was the 50s, so I saw people with lungs, God knows. I'm sure they're long dead. We didn't care about ecology, you know, it wasn't even in our language at the time. I don't think you can get a summer job in a steel mill today, can you? I don't think so. Is there any steel mill out? And incidentally, I joined the union. I was a member of the United Steel Workers of America.
The retraining possibility was just mentioned, and I don't know really if that's a viable solution because you spend many years developing your skills, and when you go for retraining, that means that you are back to square one, and you're now a cub in another brand new industry or a brand new profession.
Yes. Here's my super simple, probably inaccurate read. I look at a person like you. I don't know what your job status is. Are you employed?
I'm unemployed.
You're
I'm an
unemployed.
engineer.
Okay. I don't see a guy like you needing retraining. I see a guy like you filling any one of several. This is not to be patronizing. I'm not saying. You telling me that the future employer can't help you and educate you on the job that they might find you useful in? You know, why do you have to go to school for a job that you don't even know, the details of which are unknown to you at the time you're going to school?
Absolutely, but there's another problem.
Yeah.
And the problem that I have been confronted with is what is called age discrimination. So now, in fact, I had a beard before that was white, so I shaved it off in order to try to get a job. But you walk into an office for an interview, and as soon as the interviewer sees you, the face changes. So now, how are you going to go as a cub in a new profession and try to fight both the newness of the profession and the age discrimination?
Right. And, yeah. And here's what we're hearing, too. The guy at the desk says to you, I just can't help but think of a Death of a Salesman, you know. Willie Loman says to his boss, hey, You can't eat the orange and throw the peel away. One of the reasons that this is maybe the greatest American play of our time. Tell me about yourself is the first thing the guy said. And then he looks out the window while you're telling him, right? You know what I mean? You don't do that.
I don't do that, but I know that the people that we work with see that frequently.
And then then they'll say, what do you know about us? So
Yes.
you better done your homework before you go in. That's probably on page
right.
1 of your rules of things to do.
18, but yes.
Make sure you know what
Yes.
the company does before you go in there. Continuing this thoughtful conversation in just a moment. Thanks. Sir.
So I'd like to know, when doesn't corporate America realize that by taking all these people out of their jobs and replacing them, like for us, $10 an hour job with $6 a job,
there's no more customers.
No more
that can
economy.
afford.
There is no more economy. They're hurting themselves in the long run. Don't they realize this?
Yes. I wonder.
I just think it's really sad with our mall situation is the fact that they're busing in Mexicans from New Jersey to work at a mall on Long Island. That's really hurting the economy.
Yes, sir. Yeah, briefly.
Well, I worked for a company, Sloan Supermarket, for 13 years, and we showed up to work one Friday morning, and they kicked everybody out. They just sold the company, no warning, no anything, no back pay, no vacation pay, no anything. And we wound up 2 days later spending our time on the unemployment line. And all they filed was bankruptcy, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Sir.
One group that's been forgotten are the government employees with all the changes in parties and layoffs. I was an assistant attorney general for 15 years, fired on 2 days' notice. Government employees get no severance. A lot of people dedicated themselves to the public sector. Now they find themselves unable to find work.
I appreciate your making the point. Mr. Secretary, you should be entitled to make some commentary here about what we ought to do and where we're going, please.
Phil, I think this is one of those issues to which there is no easy magic bullet. Anybody who thinks that there's a bumper sticker solution ought to watch their wallet. There is not a bumper sticker solution, but there are pieces of solution. Number one, I think we do need strong unions. Number two, working together. But Phil, number two, we have got to raise the minimum wage. We've got to have an earned income tax credit, which is broad, so that people who are down at the bottom do have a wage supplement. We've been trying to get that. We've got to make sure that companies take responsibility. And again, this kind of era of corporate irresponsibility has got to end. Those of you who don't believe in education and job training, I agree, it's not the whole solution. But we've got to make it easy for people to get the education and job training they need, and portable pensions and portable health care. Now, these are all things. And these are issues, Phil, that we are working on, but I have to be candid with you. We are facing tremendous opposition right now from Congress, and I don't want to be partisan, but this fight is going on every single day.
Yes. Ms. Collins wanted to say.
I think everybody would agree that this whole notion of corporate loyalty doesn't exist anymore. And I think to the extent that we can, as employees and as workers, be responsible for ourselves as opposed to relying on our organizations to take care of us, I think that may be a piece of the puzzle to be solved.
You know, it seems to me to at least be one thing that could be done immediately. Let's cut right through the butter here. When you look at the compensation of CEOs, et cetera, I'm not even going to say, oh, they ought to give more to the poor. I won't even do that. A minimum wage of $4.25 is indefensible. $10 an hour is $20,000 a year. Gross. minus your FICA and everything else. Can you imagine? $10 an hour is gross, $20,000 a year, and our minimum wage at a time when executive compensation and the wealth of stockholders is going up is $4.25 an hour. We can't just chip a little away at the disparity between management and the workers by providing the workers a higher minimum wage. I don't understand that. I would ask the professor of economics from NYU.
No, I absolutely agree. I would actually second what Secretary Wright has said about the things we have to do. I would also add that we need, I think, a better unemployment insurance program in these times when people are losing jobs.
Let's understand now. You can't have a minimum wage higher than $4.25 because then small businessmen won't be able to hire you because you'll be too expensive.
But Phil, that is not the case.
If we pay you too much, then we're going to have more people out of work. These wealthy people can't pay you more than $4.25 an hour. They will tell you, because if they do, then other people who are poor, it'll create poor people. Man, they got you coming and going. They got an answer for everything. And they got to downsize, incidentally. They can't compete in the world market, so what do you want us to do? Be fat and bloated and waste a lot of money, and then we'll have no company at all. Oh, man, they go on and on. I'm listening to Nudie.
Stop listening to Nudie.
You're first. I want to show you this. I must break.
Look at this.
Wall Street sizzles while Main Street fizzles. The Secretary of Labor talks about that when we come back in just a moment.
For a transcript of Donahue, send $3 to Journal Graphics, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203, or call 303-831-9000. To order a video cassette for only $24.95, just call 1-800-FOR-VIDEO.
Here you go. Wall Street sizzles. Look at this. The Dow way past 5,000 here and going up. Here's weekly median wages, inflation adjusted. $480. Look at this. Flat. The middle class is being squeezed. If you don't own stock, you're not making any money today. And if you don't make more money than this, you can't own stock, Mr. Secretary.
Well, this is what's happening. In fact, the Wall Street, you see almost a third rise over the past year in Wall Street's actually stock prices. But look what happened to weekly earnings. That's a lot of companies, unfortunately, these days are keeping earnings down, keeping earnings up by keeping wages down. There are two kinds of companies, Phil. There are companies that treat their workers as assets to be nurtured and developed.
Yeah.
And those companies are doing well because they know that loyalty and dedication and teamwork and skills are so important. There is a different kind of company that regards its workers as costs of doing business, and they may see a little uptick in their share price in the short term. Over the long term, they are going to do worse.
They're on the roller coaster on the top side. I think that's right. We haven't met Ken Bishop. May I ask you to stand? You're Mr. Bishop. You're an AT&T employee.
Right.
From New Jersey.
Right.
And you're still working.
Right.
Do you hear it, the footsteps in the...
This is my third go-around on downsizing with AT&T, so yes, I hear it very loud and clear, especially when I'm getting close to pension time, very loud.
Mm-hmm. Have you taken a second job?
Yes.
Is this because of, not necessarily reduction in wages, but...
Earning power.
They've been flat, like the charts.
Somebody did an article on me one time, and in 1985, my wife and I earned $40,000 a year. We were able to buy a house. That was 1985.
You earned 40 each or 40 total?
Total. 1995, we earned $40,000 a year.
Totally, yes.
And nowhere near the living standard we had before.
10 years later?
10 years later.
Same income, but, no more movie money.
No moving. Well, I moved my family from Tennessee up here to keep a job, and I paid it out of my pocket.
I meant M-O-V-I-E. Recreation money is not...
No recreation.
So what do you do now? What's the second job?
It's loading trucks.
And did you sell your house?
Sold a house in Tennessee. I have to buy a house this year here.
Yeah, but are you going to buy a house?
We're going to have to, or we're going to get hit with the capital gains.
I see.
So we get both ways.
Yes.
And that may be rough even not having a job.
Right. Let me give the final moments on our program to this audience with thoughtful commentary from the stage when we come back in just a moment.
I just couldn't bring myself to kill my own child.
Women who choose to have a baby knowing they could die from childbirth. Next, Donahue.
Martin Sickers, Director of the American Association of Retired Persons, you wanted to say, sir.
Well, I just wanted to point out that older workers, 40 and up, are being faced by an increasing problem because they're not going to retire as people think they are. People are having first children when they're 40 years old, which means when they're 60, they're going to have to pay college tuition. And we can't afford to have this kind of age discrimination that we do against older workers in our contemporary workplace.
Well said, my good man. I apologize to those of you who wanted to get in. May I join me in thanking all
promotional
these
fees
guests
paid
for
by the
raising
following.
the curtain a little.